Welcome back to my channel everyone, and today we are going to be talking about an absolute icon, legend, diva, Miss Josephine Baker. What actually inspired me to make this video was that I read a book by Damian Lewis, which I'll insert a picture of here, called The Flame of Resistance, and it was basically about Josephine's life story. I'd already heard of her before because of like the banana dance and all of that kind of stuff. Very famous things, very famous pieces, especially in like the artistic world or whatever. Wow, such an amazing woman. Born Frida Josephine McDonald on the 3rd of June 1906 in St. Louis, Missouri, USA. Josephine's ancestry is unknown as her mother was adopted and stories of her father are conflicting. Her family were impoverished. Her mother placed her in a laundry to work to increase the family's income. She then became a living domestic for white families in St. Louis when she was 8 years old. One woman abused her, burning Josephine's hands because she'd put too much soap in the laundry. At age 11, she witnessed the East St. Louis massacre, a series of racist attacks that led to 150 dead Black Americans and displaced 6,000 Black Americans from their homes. By age 12, she dropped out of school, and at age 13, she began working as a waitress in the Old Chauffeurs Club. She was known to be living on the streets and scavenging at this time. At the Old Chauffeurs Club, this is where she met 26-year-old steel worker Willie Wells, whom she married while she was still 13. Luckily, the marriage only lasted around a year. Following their divorce, she started working with a street performance group. In her teens, Josephine's relationship was strained with her mother as she opposed her becoming an entertainer and also scolded her for not tending to her then second husband, William Howard Baker, whom she'd married at age 15 in 1921. She left him when her vaudeville troupe booked a New York venue. They divorced in 1925, during a period where her career began to find success. Josephine continued to use his surname for the rest of her life. Though she was often on the road due to work, she always went back to St. Louis to her mother and siblings to give them gifts and money. She picked up several jobs in chorus lines, including one in Broadway, where she stayed several months. A woman interested in art called Mrs. Caroline Dudley had made up a revue that was bound for a tour of several European cities. So Josephine sailed to Paris in 1925 and opened the show La Revue Negre at Theatre des Champs-Élysées, performing entirely naked apart from a feather skirt. She was 19 at the time. In Paris, she became an instant success for her erotic dancing and appearing on stage almost nude. After a successful tour of Europe, she broke her contract and returned to France in 1926 to star at the Folies Bergère. This photo is Josephine in her famed banana costume in 1927. She became the most successful American entertainer in France. This video is Josephine in The Hague in the Netherlands in 1928. In 1930, she sang professionally for the first time. She also starred in 4 successful silent films between 1927 and 1940. Throughout the 1930s, her stardom continued to soar and she continued performing. During her tour of Europe in the late 1920s, she'd faced severe racism in Germany, being targeted by the Nazi stormtroopers with ammonia bombs. In 1937, she married Jean Leon, a French Jewish man. This then made her a French citizen. In 1939, when war was declared, Josephine was recruited into the WW2 Bureau, which is France's intelligence services. She worked closely with Jacques Abti, the head of the French counterintelligence in Paris. She socialised with Germans in embassies, ministries, nightclubs, charming them while secretly gathering information. Her fame enabled her to rub shoulders with high-ranking Japanese officials to Italian and French bureaucrats, reporting everything back to Abti. She never raised anyone's suspicions. The WW2 Bureau shared the information she gathered with Wilfred Dunderdale, who was the English spy that James Bond is actually based on. He worked at MI6 in London. When the Bureau had to go underground, she reported to London directly. She also had a pilot's licence and flew missions during the Phoney War, which was the first year of World War II. Doing so, she collected information on German troop movements, airfields and harbours. When the Germans invaded France in 1940, she left Paris for her southern France home, Chateau des Malandes. Josephine would shelter resistance fighters and Jewish refugees there, offering them forged documents and money. Her chateau also provided the centre of French resistance activities, including the installation of a radio to keep in touch with the Allies and storing weapons in the cellar. As an entertainer, Josephine had an excuse for moving around Europe, visiting neutral countries like Portugal and some South American countries. Her notes of information were written in invisible ink on her sheet music and in the lining of her clothes. Later, in 1941, she and her entourage of pets, which included her famed cheetah, Chiquita, here you will see, who will join her in stage performances, Albert the pig, Ethel the chimp, a goat, a parrot, a few parakeets, several fish, 3 cats and 7 dogs, which included a Great Dane. All of them travelled with her to Morocco. The stated reason was her health, but the truth was to further the resistance. From her base in Morocco, she made tours of Spain, gathering information as she went. Unfortunately, in Morocco, she had the last of several miscarriages, which caused her to have an infection, which led to peritonitis and sepsis. After her recovery, which was constantly on and off, she started touring to entertain British, American and French troops, as the Free French had no organised entertainment for their troops at the time. So Josephine and her entourage relied on themselves to create the entertainment for them. They allowed no civilians and charged no admission to the soldiers. After the war, she was awarded the Croix de Guerre, the Resistance Medal, and was named a Chevalier, which is a Knight, of the Legion d'Honneur by Charles de Gaulle. She continued to have success throughout her life, though she experienced some hard times later on. In the 60s, she was also massively into the civil rights movement of the black people in America, and she was actually asked informally to be like the head of Martin Luther King's party after he'd been assassinated. Unfortunately, she lost her chateau in 1968 due to unpaid debts. However, that same year she was on stage, and as well throughout the 70s. On the 8th of April 1975, she starred in a retrospective review at the Babino in Paris, celebrating her 50 years in the show business. The review was financed by Prince Rainier and Princess Grace of Monaco and Jackie Kennedy. It got great reviews, with many celebrities being in the audience. 4 days later, unfortunately, she was found lying peacefully in her bed, surrounded by newspapers with glowing reviews of her performances. She was in a coma after suffering a cerebral hemorrhage. She passed on the 12th of April 1975, aged just 68. Her funeral attracted 20,000 mourners, and on the 30th of November 2021, she was the first black woman to become inducted into the Pantheon in Paris, which is also, again, another one of France's highest honours. I think, honestly, she was an icon and a legend, like I say. Genuinely, what an amazing woman. If you've got this far, then thank you so much for listening to me ramble. I just find it so interesting. I think she was such a lovely and incredible woman. But yeah, I hope to see you next time.